Melbourne puts the final spotlight back on the Dogs and the quarter of footy that caused a David Teague spray. All that and more to come on the round so far, but Kane Corns, the Demons have held up their end of the bargain. They're in the 8 tonight and now relying on Fremantle to knock off the Dogs.
And Simon Goodwin says there's been significant improvement this year. I expected more from them, to be fair, but they did enough today to get themselves in a position where they now rely on that result tomorrow between the Western Bulldogs and Fremantle. Despite Essendon coming late, they did hold on, and it was Bailey Fritsch once again who kicked a couple of late goals to seal the deal for Melbourne, and they sit back and have a glass of soda water and wait and see what the result holds tomorrow.
The Demons led by 27 at the final break, and then the Bombers got within 7 points. Joe Danaher in the ruck, Dylan Shield in the midfield. Incredibly, both were taken out of that final clearance that led to the Demons getting that run on. But we go back to the second quarter. Ben Rutten said they stopped all work rate, and this is the Demons kicking 5 unanswered goals in the second term.
This is the most alarming thing, I think, if you're Ben Rutten. So I've heard a lot of talk about Essendon and injuries and all of this, but this doesn't explain that. Look at the confusion defensively from Zerk Thatcher and Ridley there. Look at this, from the easiest place to defend, last line of defence, Melbourne go coast to coast without so much as Essendon laying a glove on them. So they've got issues all over the ground. Offensively, they can't score. They can't generate enough inside 50s. That was their strength. And defensively, Ben Rutten and Blake Carousella are supposed to tidy up this area, yet this is what we're getting 2 years into those two's reign. Now, I just think Ben Rutten's in a really difficult position, personnel-wise, game style-wise. They've lost all identity, and he's taking over a club that is completely on its knees. And that effort from Gleeson there, just horrible defending from an Essendon side that, don't give me injuries, because this is all effort and this is wanting to turn the footy over. This is what are you doing when you don't have the ball in your hand? And all year it's just been bitterly disappointing under Ben Rutten and John Worsfold this year.
4 of the 6 goals that Melbourne kicked in the first half started in their defensive 50, which just shows that defensive effort from the Bombers. We're going to have a look at their goal kickers now, the Demons, over the last 2 seasons. They're in the 8 as it sits. Are you concerned on their lack of scoring power if they somehow make it and scrape through?
I'm really concerned about the lack of a tall target. So you let go Jesse Hogan, McDonald, we know, kicked a lot of goals 2 years ago, but that's completely evaporated. And look at their leading goal scorers. Fritsch is, just over 6 foot. Petrarca's the same. Hunt is under 6 foot. Wiedemann shows promise, but he's too inconsistent. Look at the big sides, the top 4. They've all got a big power forward that they can rely on. And Brisbane have got a couple that are developing, but are over 200 centimetres. Lynch and Riewoldt and Dixon and Hawkins and Kennedy from West Coast. Melbourne don't have that. So their number one target, if they think they're in the mix to play finals next year, is to go and get a key forward who's 6'5", 6'6", who can kick you 40-plus goals next year.
And the irony of it all is that Melbourne tomorrow barracking for Jesse Hogan to kick a bag and upset the Western Bulldogs, if you can believe all of that. Let's take a look at a couple of incidents over the weekend you wanted to pick up. The first one, Michael Hibbert attacking the footy. You're pretty strong on these.
I'm really concerned about this. I think this is a reportable offence. I know Jake Stringer wasn't injured, but I think that's about as dangerous an act as you can do along with a sling tackle on the ground. And this one from Heath Short, that is the potential to cause such serious injury. Now, it's a free kick. It's the right decision, but that could be horrific for Dan Butler there. You could easily see a broken leg. We've seen it in the past. So I think that needs to be more than a free kick to deter players, particularly when the finals are going to be really slippery from sliding in and causing harm with lower leg injuries.
Just before we leave the Bombers, they've delisted Sean McInerney tonight. That is official. Adam Sard and Joe Danaher both weighing up their futures. What would it mean if both of those were to walk out and Ben Rutten starts his reign with neither Sard nor Danaher?
And McKenna as well. That's the other one who's gone home. He's a top 10 player at Essendon for me. So if you lose your 2 most threatening options off half back, we speak about their game style. Well, that's gone as well because you've got no personnel to carry that out. And then Danaher, I'm not as concerned about Joe Danaher. I think a lot of Essendon fans get caught up in it. I think it's a win-win if he does leave and Essendon can get something for him, because we've seen in the last 3 weeks, I'm just not sure he can play consistent footy when the Bombers will be in that premiership window, 3 or 4 years down the track.
Only 2 touches in the first 3 quarters for Danaher today. One of the sides that's been linked to him is the Brisbane Lions. They move to the top of the table for tonight, at least with a win over Carlton. They have to rely now on Port Adelaide losing to Collingwood. But Kane, they just did enough, and Lachie Neale was in the midst of it again.
Yeah, they laid the smackdown in that second quarter, didn't they? 5 unanswered goals in driving rain. So we'll speak about Carlton in a second, but defensively, once again, they just conceded far too many in a row. But Brisbane are just sitting nicely on top of the ladder, waiting for that result, as you said, against Port Adelaide and Collingwood on Monday night. I mean, that's too easy, but I love their midfield. I just think their midfield works so hard, and it did cause David Teague, who I've accused of being super nice this year, to absolutely give it to his Carlton players at halftime. This is after that 5 unanswered goals and the driving away in the second quarter. It's the 18th time that the Carlton side under David Teague have conceded a 30-point swing, and he's been too nice. And finally, you're seeing a bit of emotion, and he's starting to realise that to be successful, you've got to be a ruthless coach. And on the back of that, Carlton responded, but it was too little too late.
It was the only quarter they lost on the night, so they won the first, third and fourth quarters, but the second quarter let them down. You could see Kade Simpson there at the front. His final game in Blues colours. He is our Saturday star. 342 games and final. He got forward and snuck through for a goal, Kane.
I'm not sure how much of it was his call and how much of it was the club's call, but if it was the club's call, they've gone with the wrong guy. Like, if you're looking at Eddie Betts' numbers as opposed to Kade Simpson's and the eye test, Simpson could easily be going around again next year. Great to go out with a lot in the tank and completely on top of your game. Once again, he was one of the Blues' best, as he has been for such a long period of time. Great scenes. Not sure there's a more admired current day player. Probably him and Sean Burgoyne are the ones that spring to mind for me. But what a way to go out when you're completely on top of your game. Just a shame he only got to experience 6 finals out of those 342 games.
Didn't want the lift off the ground, walking off alongside Matthew Cruiser there. One other Blue that we wanted to talk about was Mitch McGovern. He's only averaged 7 disposals in his last 4 games, 1 goal in total from those 4. Started forward tonight, went back and then ended the game forward. Is this now a concern, a looming concern for the Blues, given the money that he's on, 3 years left to run at that footy club, and they've got Charlie Curnow coming back from injury next season?
He's hardly tradable, is he? Like, no one would pick up that contract that he's on. So, yeah, Charlie Curnow coming back. I like Koning in the forward line, and clearly McKay's going to be an absolute star. He was great again with 3 goals tonight. So I would train him down back. I'm not sure about Jones and Plowman as Carlton defenders, so I think he would be a good second or third option across half-back as that interceptor, but it's going to take a big pre-season. He's got to get fitter. I'm not sure he's prepared himself well enough to have success at the level, and that's why he's getting the results that he's getting, where he touches the ball 6, 7, 8 times max in a game of footy. So I'd give him a bit of a shot and say, look, your last chance is to play as a defender. We're going to train you there all year and give you a crack at it early on in the year. If that fails, I just don't know what the answer is for him.
Yeah, big watch on Mitch McGovern going into next season. Oscar McInerney has become an important player for the Lions this season, Kane. A bit of touch and niggle here at halftime, getting stuck into Lachie Plowman. Then he went and gave Sam Walsh a rib tickler later in the game. Probably nothing to rule him out for a match, but he's got to be careful here, Oscar McInerney, and this will be looked at for a potential fine.
Definitely be looked at, and it will definitely be a fine, and I'm not sure why he's taking that risk in the last game of the year. He's been good. He's been one of their more improved players, and he's going to be vital for them in the final series. So, bit of a brain fade. Hopefully it's a fine and he learns his lesson.
You're at the Adelaide Oval today. Richmond just did what it needed to do against the Adelaide Crows. They've locked in 3rd position on the table. Getting ominous now for the Tigers. They get Dion Prestia and Tom Lynch back for the first final, but their backline looking the goods. Asprey, Vlauston, Grimes, Bolter, and you wanted to pick out this bit of vision.
Watched a lot of footy on TV this year, so it was great to be at the ground and just seeing how organised they are. So they let Adelaide have an extra on-baller, and they say, well, you win it. Adelaide win the clearances today, but we'll just win it back. We'll force a long kick down the line. We'll intercept it with our spare, and it could be Vlauston, it could be Grimes. On this occasion, it's Grimes directing. Look, Adelaide have got the extra on-baller at the stoppage, so, of course, they've got more chance to win it, which they do. But a kick long high straight to Richmond's spare, which they've organised so well, and then they're off. Then they get their game going from there. So it's a real decision you've got to make if you are playing Richmond. Do you give them that extra spare and have the extra at the stoppage, or do you even the numbers up forward of the ball and play 6 forwards and not allow that spare, but the numbers are even at that stoppage? So that's the decision from the coach's box. But today, Richmond were just far too organised, and it's just a joy to watch them play footy. No one dominates. Dustin Martin was the only one, I think, that had over 20 disposals. Edwards just looked like a Rolls Royce coming straight back in. So credit to him, the work that he did to prepare himself in quarantine. And Bolton's the other one to come back as well with the others that you mentioned. So they're just in a great spot, and also have an outstanding record at the Gabba, where you think that first final may be played.
Taylor Walker, the positive news for the Crows today, went past Tony Modera's all-time leading goal kicking for the Crows, 441 for Tech. So congratulations as he heads into what most likely looks his final season of AFL next year. To Friday night, St Kilda, they've locked in a spot in the top 8 for the first time since 2011, Kane, and it was their small forwards who were amongst the damage.
It was their small forwards and their rucks, I thought. The work rate of their small forwards, and that's Steele, he's All-Australian, so lock him in the All-Australian team. He cemented that with this performance. But this is what you get for the Giants. When you're going to ruck with Green, and when you're going to ruck with Finlayson, and you've got Shane Mumford, just hanging on, you're going to get 7 goals from stoppages kicked against you, which is what the Saints did. But just have a look at Loney's work rate here, right to the fall of the ball. Doesn't get it on the first one, stays involved in the contest, bang. I mean, that's what these forwards do, the pressure that they apply. So it's a tough, demanding position on the ground. But the Saints have got a couple of rippers. I reckon Loney's much improved. Butler, probably the recruit of the year. Gresham's been doing it for a while. So this was what got them the result, and that high pressure score off turnover game was great to see.
That man there, Jack Steele, against his former side, dominating again. And you wouldn't really mount as a smoky for the Brownlow medal. I know Lachie Neale is leading that conversation, Petrarca as well, but Jack Steele putting together a fantastic season. We want to go back to another recruit for the Saints, and it's Dan Butler. We're going to start with the broadcast vision here, Kane, and his work rate is something else you noticed.
So you're watching on TV and you think, he bobs up and he kicks a nice, clever goal, just sort of half rat power there, and then puts the afterburners on and kicks it. But what you don't see on TV is the work rate from up the field and the behind the goals vision. So there he is. So it's damning on the Giants. You watch the Giants' lack of accountability on him. See if anyone bumper bars him or puts a touch on him. No, they don't. But look at him just going to the right spots. Doesn't get the first one. Right in the right spot for a small forward. Once again, as I said, the pressure and the lack of accountability from the Giants is alarming, and they're a whole story altogether. But Dan Butler, you wonder why he's had such a great season. It's because of that work rate.
And the Giants were left to watch and walk as he walked into that open goal. Stephen Coniglio back for the Giants. What did you make of his game? So much said about it. They've confirmed he's going to be the skipper next year. Did you like what you saw on his return?
It was pretty positive, wasn't it? I think there's still some deficiencies in his game. He kicks on his left foot far too often, and that was the case again. But he made a statement. I thought he played tough, hard footy, and what we expect from a player who's getting paid top 10 in the competition. What I would do next year, I'm not sure how much footy Matt De Boer's got left in him. I think Stephen Coniglio plays his absolute best when his first option is to be an accountable midfielder. We've seen Steele do it before. I've seen Pendlebury do it over his career. Greats like Jimmy Bartell have gone and played a run with roll. So my first instruction to Coniglio would be, every time you play, you're going to go and stand in the opposition's best midfielder at every stoppage. And you can choose who that is. 1 week it'll change, and then from stoppage to stoppage it'll change. But that's your first point. And then from there you go and win the footy. And that's when he's played his best footy. I think he just got too ahead of himself, got caught up in the big contract and the captain of the club, and went away from his real strength as that hard-running, accountable midfielder.
Sam Jacobs today officially retiring. Had a year to run on his contract. Shane Mumford is also up in the air, as is Heath Shaw. So a couple of decisions to make on those veterans. Plus they're waiting for answers on Zach Williams and Jeremy Cameron. A curious fortnight or so coming up for the Giants. Back to Thursday night. West Coast, they did enough to beat the Roos. They held scoreless in the first quarter, West Coast. We're going to have a look at their midfield for this first final because they're locked in. They'll play it at home at Optus Stadium. Elliot Yeo has been ruled out, and there's a few in that middle column there, Kane, that have got some doubts for that first final.
Yeah, if the week off is going to help anyone, it's them and probably Collingwood. And to be fair, all of the top teams. But when you've got Nat Nui and Kelly in good form, Gaff's in great form, you always give them a shot. I think Nat Nui is the All-Australian ruckman and one of the hottest players in the game right now. So, look, they are in the top 4. We'll wait and see what happens to Geelong. You'd expect them to easily account for Sydney tomorrow, which makes it a bit difficult for the Eagles. But we saw them throughout the year get on an 8-game winning streak. So what's to say they can't win 4 in a row to win another premiership this year? I'm certainly not writing them off.
The Roos didn't even wait 24 hours before making some big list decisions. 11 players in total were delisted, the names in front of us, Kane. Just take us through a few names. Jasper Pittard is one in the leadership group at the start of this year. Came across from Port Adelaide. They were praising him only a couple of months ago. Do any of these guys get another opportunity?
Probably Pittard is the one. For me, I still think he's young enough and has speed and attributes and can be creative off half-back. So if you're looking at a side with a really dour defence, and even someone like an Adelaide with Brown and Hardigan and Talia, they're pretty boring across half-back. I think he may fit in there. I thought he was stiff. I was surprised by that. But this is what they need. That they have thought they were far too attractive than what they were as a list, North Melbourne. They've gone and tried to get free agents and try and top up and think they're around the mark. They're miles off it. So at least they finally realise that they are, and they're going to do what Adelaide did last year and move on 10, 11 players and get a whole bunch of youngsters in.
The big issue with North Melbourne is their top-end talent is the older players, 29 and 30 plus and above. You have a look at this black hole in the middle of their list. These are the guys who should be 23 to 26 years of age going into next year. Only a couple remain from these 4 drafts.
Well, that's why drafting's so important. That's why premierships are won on draft night. And it's great to have the picks, but you've got to pick the right players. And to be fair, they haven't had those elite picks that Carlton have had, the Giants have had, Gold Coast, and some other sides. So that they've only had the 1 or 2 first-round draft picks. And even then, they haven't been those elite picks that they've needed. But, yeah, it's just a massive void in a group of players that should be in the 24, 25-year-old bracket, absolutely coming into their prime, driving the club forward. That's what they're missing, and that graphic is the best example of where North Melbourne are at and the troubles that they've got.
We'll have a look at the ladder now as it sits with only a couple of games to go. As we mentioned, Melbourne is back in the top 8 for the time being, and Kane, the Pies can move ahead of the Saints if they can knock off the Power.
You wouldn't be surprised if Collingwood got up for that either. A couple of injured players back in for their second game and looking better as slippery conditions on Monday night. No Collingwood have trained for that. So that's the big one. And then the other one is the Western Bulldogs out of it, taking on Fremantle, who are in good form. Mitch, Fremantle have caused a lot of headaches for many sides. And how about Carlton? Just the 7 wins for the year again and another finish outside the top 8 in 12th. What a disappointment they've been.
And Essendon falling behind Carlton even further. We go to the rest of the round as it sits. Sean Burgoyne will be there for the Hawks against Gold Coast, but they're farewelling Piopolo and Stratton. Geelong get their guns back. Selwood, Ablett, Rowan among them against Sydney. And a couple of other important games to finish off the round.
Yep, that is. It's going to be a great day of footy ahead. Can't wait for it.
No Sonny Walters for the Dockers. That'll be big, and the Dogs will take some buoyancy into that game. And the other big news today, Kane, Steele Sidebottom will stay in Victoria, won't be joining the Pies, so his season is done. As we go to our one more thing for this Saturday, John Worsfold farewelling the Bombers and potentially AFL football, alongside Tom Bellchambers, who went out retired but didn't play today. Simon Goodwin getting across. The pressure comes on Ben Rutten now.
Well, he takes over a club that's completely on their knees, and there's a lot of talk coming out of Essendon that they're going to be ruthless and turn it around. But I've heard a lot of talk out of Essendon for a long time. So all they can do is have a really good pre-season, get their decisions right in the off-season, draft and trade well, and build a list that has some hope to do what they didn't do this year, and that was defend and give effort.
All right, by the next time we speak, 2 weeks' time, we may have decisions to come on Danaher and Adam Sard. I'll see you then.
See you, Mitch.